Greetings, human life forms. I'm the Meister, and welcome back to another edition of the OT Podcast. I'm your host today, Owen Reed, joined by my co-host yet again, Thomas Bailey, as we get set to make our Week 9 NFL predictions. Last week, Thomas went 10-6 for an overall record of 83-40, and I went 11-5 last week, securing the trophy yet again. Feels like a weekly theme is starting to happen right now.
Thank you, Jaden Daniels.
Yes, of course. And my overall for the season is 86-37. As we move right along into Halloween night, should be a terrifying game for the Jets fans, as the 2-6 Jets go to host the 6-2 Houston Texans without Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs for this matchup. Thomas, who do you have kicking off Week 9 with a W?
The New York Jets. Sorry, but I gotta spice things up this week. I think that the New York Jets come out of here with a fire under their ass. This is a game they have to win. Like, if you lose this game, your season's over. And I understand that most likely their season already is over.
I feel like you said that last week with the Patriots.
Yes, but at the same time, I think that this is a Jets team that's been sluggish the last couple weeks. I think they're due for something. And they're going up against a Texans team that hasn't looked all that great to start this second stretch, I guess. They didn't look good against the Colts. They had a couple plays in that game where there was a throw to the end zone, and they called offensive pass interference on Alex Pierce, or else that's a touchdown. And they called back 2 other touchdowns for the Colts on the same drive beforehand, with a Mo Alley Cox touchdown and Kyle Granson touchdown getting called back as well. They shouldn't have won that football game. The referees saved them in that game against a team that hasn't looked great in the Colts. They're going through a shift now with Richardson being out, so that's a team that you can't lose to if you're the Houston Texans, and they almost did twice this season so far. And on top of that, if you look at last season, when did C.J. Stroud have his worst stretch of the season? Weeks 8 through 11 were his worst stretch, and in Week 9 last season, he lost to the Carolina Panthers. I think that it stays true to form. He hasn't had that big of a year. He had 86 passing yards in that Packers game. The defense was saving him. I think this is a game where he's going to have to step up and show what he can do with the lack of Diggs, who just tore his ACL, and with the lack of Nico Collins, who's still on IR with that hamstring issue. I think this is going to be a game he has to ball out. I don't think he's going to be able to do so. I have the Jets coming out with a big win that they absolutely need. At home, too. Give me the New York Jets 20-17 in this football game to start it off with some spice.
I love it. This game was, I would say it's a bit tough for me to predict considering the Texans are missing their top 2 wide receivers. But I can't pick the Jets to win a game right now. I'm going to have to go with the Houston Texans to beat the New York Jets in this one. You mentioned C.J. Stroud being bad this time of season last year, but that's only off of 1 year of seeing what he can do. Just last year he was bad in these couple weeks, so he's bound to be bad these couple weeks, and the Jets.
Well, I'm not saying that necessarily, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but and the Jets, they do absolutely need to win this game, but they just haven't shown much at all. I mean, they had, I guess you could say, a competitive game against the Patriots, but when you compare the Texans and the Patriots, I'd say either of those teams probably don't have many wide receivers right now because of the injuries again with Houston. And Houston's been pretty solid on defense. I wouldn't say they've been great on defense, but they've definitely been I'd say pretty solid. And going against the Colts, I mean it's a divisional matchup, so it's always going to be one of those tight, close games. So I got to roll with the Houston Texans in this one. I wouldn't be too surprised if the Jets won, but I think I'd still be a bit surprised considering all the dysfunction going on with that organization right now. So starting off with a disagreement to start off the week, finally, as we get rolling into Sunday and into November 3rd, daylight saving time on Sunday. Don't forget, everybody.
Yes.
And we're going to start off with the shitter of the week as we enter the Fox 1 p.m. window. It is the 2-6 New England Patriots traveling into Tennessee to take on the 1-6 Titans. Who do you got winning this tank battle?
I'm going to have to lean with my gut here, and that says the New England Patriots. They did beat a team that had very high expectations in the New York Jets last week. Obviously, I picked the Jets to win this week, so I still think that there's some little bit of hope for them. I doubt that there'll be anything crazy. But For New England specifically, this is a game right here. You're going up against another team that's bottom 5 in the league right now in the Titans. They haven't really done too much this year. Their only win being against the Miami Dolphins without Tua Tagovailoa. And that's the issue here for me is the Titans really haven't proven themselves outside of, really at all this season. To be fair, that defense is a little bit better than people expect. Drake May's coming back from the injury, so I think they'll get a little bit more than what I thought originally, which was 17. I'll give them 20 points this time. I think they win this one 20-13 in a really bad football game. This is going to be back and forth, just punt fest. But if it's Mason Rudolph or Drake May, I was really high on Drake May coming out of the draft. It's going to come down to that situation for me. And also, you got 2 young head coaches, so I don't really know who to lean with here. If I had to go with either one of these guys, that would probably be Gerard Mayo. I do think that the Titans being at home could definitely be a factor for them. I think they definitely could win this football game. Back and forth, really close game for me, but give me the Tennessee Titans to fall in this one at home.
Yeah, we just haven't really seen, a whole lot of, energy from these two teams lately. I mean, the Patriots, yes, because ever since they put Drake May into the fold, they've had a little bit of a light underneath them, like a fire. They've been playing a bit better this season, even though they did play pretty well to start off the season, even though it's just 1-1, and then it was kind of a bit downhill from there. And then the Tennessee Titans, when you look at them, they've kind of been, dead this whole season. It's almost like they didn't even know there was a football season happening this year. I expected their offense to be better than how they were with Will Levis. I was kind of hyping him up a little bit to kind of take a nice step with having those receivers and having Tony Pollard a running back, but of course that didn't really work out, and now Hopkins is in Kansas City. And again, the defense has been better than what we expected them to, but it's just really tough to pick the Tennessee Titans, especially getting absolutely slapped by the Lions. I get it was the Lions with the best team in football right now, arguably, but still losing by 40 points is still pretty bad. So there's just really nothing going for the Titans right now. And the Patriots, I'd say they're a little bit energized after beating a divisional rival, them being the Jets. So I'm going to have to go with the Patriots in this one as well. As we roll on into Cincinnati, as we got the 3-5 Bengals hosting the 2-6 Las Vegas Raiders. Thomas, who do you got?
Another one of these weird predictions for me, but I have the Cincinnati Bengals winning this football game, and that's not the weird part. I think this game is the game we're going to look back on and see the Cincinnati Bengals turn it around. This is the game they have to finally get going. They have to light that fire under them. They have to go 7-2 in this last stretch to finish with a 10-7 record. They don't play too many really good opponents. They have the Ravens once more and then the Steelers twice. So if they can split with the Steelers, those are basically the only games I see that are clear-cut losses on their schedule. They also have Dallas as well, so we'll see if that's a win or loss as well. But for this game, I think this is the start of a turnaround for Joe Burrow and this Bengals team. They're going up against a team in the Las Vegas Raiders right now that is extremely beat up, especially on the defensive side of the ball, losing Christian Wilkins. Merrick's been dealing with a hamstring issue. It's a lot of issues for this team, but I have to go ahead and give it to the Cincinnati Bengals by a mile here, 28-10 at home. I think this is going to be one of those games for the Raiders where we're finally going to see them come back down to earth. They kept it close with Kansas City, but like you mentioned with that Colts-Texans game, the division rival games are normally a little bit closer, although that one was definitely a little bit of an outlier because the Chiefs definitely shouldn't have won that game if Luke Getsy actually knew how to call plays. But for Cincinnati, back to this game, I think the Bengals clear in this one. This is the start of a turnaround for Cincinnati. This is a game they have to win. They say it all the time for these last few weeks. Oh, we have to win this football game. We have to. And then they'd come out and they'd lose. You finally have to win these games that you were saying that you have to win. And this is the final game before the turnaround. Give me Cincinnati 28-10.
All right, I'm also going to have to go with the Cincinnati Bengals in this one. Straight up looking at the matchup, Cincinnati got destroyed by Philadelphia last week. And, the Raiders kind of had a close one with Kansas City. But, again, it's like a divisional matchup. So you really never know with how those games are going to turn out. And the Raiders are one of those teams so far that have been, as I'm sure everyone knows, they traded away Devontae Adams. They are one of the sellers at the trade deadline. And normally what that tells me the most, about a team, if they, sell, star players and stuff like that, if the Jaguars, for example, getting rid of Cam Robinson, that almost gives me, a feeling like they don't feel confident in themselves and being able to make it far this season, which kind of lowers the bar for them a lot in terms like being able to like win games. Like sure, obviously they can still win games, but it doesn't give you a whole lot of confidence in that team moving forward. And of course, the Raiders going against the Bengals, and the Raiders have been kind of having like a bit of quarterback issues. They switched to Aiden O'Connell, but he got injured, so they went back to Gardner Minshew. So it's kind of just a mess in Las Vegas right now, and Cincinnati, I feel like they're like trying to find their rhythm right now, and they got a couple wins and they lost a couple, so it's like kind of like a bit of a weird situation. But again, like you said, they kind of have an easy schedule for the rest of the season coming up, so we'll see what they can do with that. But I'm gonna have them win in this game here, and advance into 4-5 in their season. As we move along to an NFC East matchup between the 6-2 Washington Commanders, again, thank you, Jaden Daniels, traveling into New Jersey to take on the 2-6 Giants.
I'm going to lean with the Commanders in this one. Obviously, these two teams have clashed a lot in the last few years. Being division rivals, you have to play twice a season. Last year, the Giants swept the Commanders. I think this year it's the opposite. I think the Commanders sweep the Giants this time around with this win. I think the Commanders have a very solid football team. Last week showed that they can play through adversity, which is what these younger teams need to show. And that's exactly what they did, winning on that Hail Mary from Noah Brown. And realistically, despite all the controversy, that's an insane throw by Jaden Daniels, being injured with bruised ribs. I don't know if you saw any of the game or not, but he kept throwing the ball short on 5 or 6 yard passes. He was throwing the ball at the people's feet, at his own receiver's feet, and they were talking about that rib issue. To be able to just suck it up for one final shot and bomb this one 55 yards in the air to the end zone is actually amazing from him. So give me the Commanders in this game as well. I think that they dominate for most of this game. I think the Giants will bring it back in the end. So give me 31-21. I feel like the one Giants' weakness is Daniel Jones. Like, mainly, he's the big issue. So I do think that this Commanders secondary is not all that great. Last week, they did pick apart Caleb Williams. He couldn't really do too much, but I think this game is going to be closer than a lot of people think it could be. It's a division rival matchup, so give me 31-21 Commanders in this one to move on to 7-2.
Oh my God, that's actually kind of crazy now that you say that. But yeah, I'm also gonna pick the Washington Commanders to win this game.
This will set us up for an Eagles-Commanders showdown next week too.
I saw that on the schedule. I was like, oh my God.
I think it's Thursday night.
It is. I think it's either next Thursday night or in 2 weeks. It's either 1 week or 2 weeks away.
Oh.
But that's gonna be a great matchup right there. But what I see in this matchup, really, I know the Commanders kind of struggled last week, but Jaden Daniels barely practiced at all last week, so kind of figured going into the game the offense was going to be kind of sluggish coming out of the gate, which it was. And then as for the Giants, I feel like really their only hope to win this game is Tyrone Tracy. Like, he's been like their absolute stud, and sure, Malik Neighbors has been a stud also.
Singletary.
Okay, stop talking. But Malik Neighbors is also a special player, but he's not going to be as insane as Tyrone Tracy, considering Daniel Jones has to throw him the ball, and like with Tyrone Tracy, he could just take the ball and run with it. So I feel like he's really their only hope in this game. So if the Commanders can't contain Tyrone Tracy, I feel like this game could maybe go either way in this one. But I don't know, with Jaden Daniels getting a full week of reps in practice, I feel like the offense is going to be back in its rhythm heading into this game. So give me the Commanders to win this one as well. And of course, if you guys want to see my score predictions, I have a slideshow on my YouTube channel, Leo Meister, where you can see my score predictions. It's only like 3 minutes long if you guys care to see my scores for the games. As we move on to the final 1 p.m. Fox game, it is the 3-4 Dallas Cowboys as they travel into Atlanta to take on the 5-3 Falcons. Thomas, did the Cowboys make it back to 500?
No, they don't. They have looked uninspiring for these last few weeks. They have not played the football that they've been, I guess, presumed to have played this season. A lot of people had them at 11-6, even 10-7 for a lot of people as well. Is still a stretch right now. They're not playing that great of football. You're going up against a Falcons team that's also going through a similar stretch right now, having just barely beat the Buccaneers without their top 2 weapons, and the week prior getting smacked around by the Seahawks. So I do think this is a game that could go either way. These two teams are kind of falling into that category of, like, which one's actually real, which one's not. And back-to-back weeks, we have one of those games, and back-to-back weeks, the Dallas Cowboys are in one of those games, as the 49ers game was last week. I think the 49ers have a lot to prove as well, still obviously being only 4-4, still second in that division right now as well.
That's crazy.
Cardinals winning the division.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
The Falcons and the Cowboys, though, I do think that the Atlanta Falcons win this one. It's going to come down to if they can run the ball, and it's Bijan Robinson and one of the top 12 offensive line in the Falcons going up against absolutely one of the worst rush defenses I've ever seen in my life. I think you could put like a 12-year-old back there, and he's running for 150 yards on that Cowboys defense.
Oh, my God.
If you give him the right O-line, yes. And it's Bijan Robinson. He looked great last week. I think the Falcons kind of are one of those teams that kind of fall off in the second half. I think this is one of those games where they're not going to need the second half. They're going to dominate for the majority of this one. I think the Cowboys, like last week, make it close near the end, make it look better than it was. 31-28. Falcons win this one. I would have had 31-21, but a touchdown late gives them 28. So 31-28, Atlanta at home against a disgruntled Cowboys team. I would not be surprised to see if there's some changes made at the deadline after this, but this is a game that they have to win, and I don't think they're going to get that win. So go ahead and give me Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm going to say, what the hell, Dallas, right out of the gate. I picked you guys to win last week. I really shouldn't have, considering I know the 49ers own the Cowboys, but at the time, I didn't really know that Micah Parsons wasn't going to be playing. I felt like it maybe could have been a little bit different if he played, but with the outcome of that game, it would have ended the same way.
It would have been a little different. But,
yeah, but the Niners still would have won that game. But
right.
Regardless, I'm also going to go with the Falcons in this one. I'm getting a little bit worried about Atlanta. I will throw that out there, considering it was a close game against Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay, again, without their top two receivers, and that was a close game. So I'm a little bit worried for the Falcons in that defense, but I think they're going to be able to take down the Cowboys here in this one. The Cowboys have kind of been slugging around lately. Their offense, I feel like, has been honestly getting worse as weeks has been going on. And the defense really hasn't been showing too much, especially when Micah Parsons is not on that football field. So give me the Falcons to win this one as well and advance to 6-3 on the season. As we move along to the 1 o'clock CBS games, as the first one is the other shitter of the week. It is the 2-6 New Orleans Saints traveling into Carolina to take on the 1-7 Panthers.
Oh, what cannot be said that you just said already, man? Like, this is disgusting. This is one of the worst games that we're probably going to see all season. This is at 4 o'clock,
I mean, one of the worst games I've seen in my life.
This is at 4 o'clock?
It's at 1 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
It's the 1 o'clock CBS game.
Thank God. Okay, so I do think that the Saints win this football game. I think it's going to be a very bad football game from both sides. If you had to give me a quarterback out of Spencer Rattler or Bryce Young, I'd go Spencer Rattler. He showed flashes in his first game, which was the Buccaneers game. I do think the Bucs have a better defense than the Panthers do by a mile, so there's also that to add to that. I understand they haven't really played up to expectations these last couple weeks, but if you're the Carolina Panthers, this is a season where nothing's been going right for you. You haven't really had too much to look forward to, and I think that this is going to be another one of those games for them. So give me 17-13 Saints. I think this one will be a really lower scoring game, but I think it'll be an intense matchup at the same time. Like, low-scoring game, but both teams are really close there. And believe it or not, this game has a lot more implications than people think. Because if these two teams finish with the same record, if the Panthers win this football game, the Saints will have the higher draft pick in the draft.
Insane.
So that's another thing to think about as well on top of this. Same with the Titans-Patriots. That's another one for those higher picks in the draft. So I understand that your season potentially could be over for both of these teams, especially after the Derek Carr thing for the Saints. But if Carr comes back and plays, they win by 30. If he doesn't play, I still think they scrape by with a win with Spencer Rattler. So give me the Saints.
Yeah, you just mentioned what I was about to say. Derek Carr is practicing this week. I don't know if it's full capacity or some capacity, but he is practicing ahead of the game this week. So I think Derek Carr will be playing this Sunday. I think this is a great game to get him kind of back into the groove of playing a game again because it has been a while. But Panthers still haven't really shown nothing, like at all.
It's been a while since he's been around, but the Panthers are still the Panthers.
Yeah. I mean, they had that one win. Who did they?
The Raiders.
The Raiders.
32-13.
Oh, God, yeah.
The Raiders are like one of the most inconsistent teams.
Yeah, well, now they're just bad at this point. But yeah, the Saints should win this game. If Spencer Rattler does play, I feel like it can be closer to a toss-up because the offense for New Orleans has been abysmal when Spencer Rattler has been playing.
If it was Andy Dalton going against Spencer Rattler,
I'd probably pick the Panthers.
I'd pick the Panthers.
But that's not happening. It's going to be Bryce Young against Derek Carr.
Because of that car crash that you so happily mentioned.
We can't just put that behind us, man.
No.
Really.
Your credibility was ruined.
Okay, we're just going to try to put that behind us by going to the next matchup. And that is...
the hospital.
Okay, the next matchup being the 4-3 Los Angeles Chargers traveling into Cleveland to take on the 2-6 Browns. Browns, thank you so much for beating the Ravens last week. I love you, Thomas. Who do you have?
Ooh, this one was very difficult for me to pick, but I have to side with my gut in this one. I'm going Chargers.
Oh!
Out and beat the Ravens and then find a way to fumble against the Chargers.
Fair enough.
This would be the most Browns thing of all time for this to happen. I'm sorry, Browns fans. I really do appreciate the win against the Ravens last week. But tell me this isn't true. This is a team in the Cleveland Browns that looks to have a new little bit of fire under themselves. But the way you beat the Cleveland Browns is by having a great defense. Obviously, the Ravens haven't shown a good defense all season. So realistically, I don't think that was a game with the Ravens where you can really say, oh, well, they did play a great defense. They didn't. The Ravens have not looked great. They didn't play Marlon Humphrey in this game or Nate Wiggins, so their top two corners were out. That's why Cedric Tillman went nuts. I don't think that you're going to go insanely good in this game either. I think that Nick Chubb's not going to be able to get the ground game going for them too well, and they're not going to be able to really work off the play action like they did last week. Even the throws over the middle to David Njoku will be questionable in this game. You got Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa on the other side of the football. You always have to remember that. And then don't forget Derwin James in the secondary. I do think that Asante Samuel can lock up Cedric Tillman. I feel like it's going to be an interesting matchup to see them go at it. But I do think that the Chargers need a corner eventually. But this is the Browns team where that's not going to get exposed because the Browns don't really have a true number one option after the trade of Amari Cooper. So I do think that this is going to be one of those close games, a nail-biter, if you will, right down to the end. It's going to be a defensive showdown, but give me the Chargers to win on it. Who would have guessed it? Another field goal right at the end, in my opinion. They win 20-17. Give me the Chargers.
All right. Give me the Cleveland Browns to win this football game. I think Jameis Winston has ignited a new fire in that team. I think they actually have a guy that they can play for. Jameis Winston had a great game last week. You said the Ravens defense was banged up, which is true. But if there was a quarterback like Deshaun Watson out there playing against the banged-up Ravens secondary, they still would have barely even scored 10 points if they were lucky enough to even score 10 points. And Nick Chubb, I think he might get the ground game going a little bit. I don't think he's going to be stopped a lot, kind of like what you said with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. But I think every week Nick Chubb is going to get better and better and better after coming back from his injury. And the Chargers, I feel like, have been a bit inconsistent, too. I know people love to praise Jim Harbaugh and all that, but I don't know if this is going to be an absolute terrific season because of Jim Harbaugh this season. They've been pretty inconsistent, I feel like, in my opinion, so far this season, and I feel like they'll continue to be inconsistent while the Browns finally find that consistency that they've been looking for all season long and beat the Chargers here at home to get to 3-6 on the season. As we move along to Orchard Park, New York, the 6-2 Buffalo Bills hosting the 2-5 Miami Dolphins in a battle of the AFC East. Number 2 in the division versus number 1 in the division. Not for first place, obviously, because it's a big Bills lead right now in the AFC East. But Thomas, do the Dolphins finally get a win against the Bills?
Yeah, no, they don't. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Brian.
If I'm a Dolphins fan right now, I'm very upset with that loss to the Cardinals last week. I do feel for you, Brian. I know you watch these, so sorry about that, man. But this is a game right here where Buffalo's going to come out and probably put up 40 if I would expect anything less of Josh Allen. The way he's been playing, he's been on fire. This offense is finally working as a complete unit now that the trade of Amari Cooper has really helped as well. I do think that defense played a very good game last week as well. I freaking genuinely forgot that Tyler Lockett existed last week until he made that one catch. He had one catch for 9 yards in that game, and Jackson Smith-Njigba, their other top option, had 3 receptions going into the fourth quarter. He had 3 receptions in the fourth quarter for 6 for 69 in that game. So I do think that...
No DK Metcalf, though.
Yeah, but at the same time, we don't really have true number one guys yet. No one really thinks of, no one, when you're saying the top corners in the league, I never see Christian Benford, which is disrespectful, yes, but at the same time, it's Tyler Lockett. He's a solid receiver, and same with Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're solid guys, and they like to use them in a ton of different ways. Mike McDonald has really put them everywhere. You can see one in the slot. You can see him lined up outside. You can see him move into the X spot. You can see him move back out to the Y. They move all around. They move in motion on like pre-snap motions as well, and we really shut them down last week. This week, we're going up against a team that likes to do that as well, with two speedy guys being Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Mm-hmm. I do think that they have a better game than what they did in the first matchup between us, because Tua Tagovailoa just couldn't really get anything going in that game. I think he's going to get back in this game. I think Tua will have a solid one. I think the Bills' defense gives up a little bit of points, 17, but I think Buffalo wins this one 35-17. This is a game for the division, in my opinion. If the Bills win this game, I don't see them choking a 5 or 6 game division lead at this point. They're not going to be one of those teams that chokes like the Miami Dolphins did last year. Anyway, I do think, though, to get off a sensitive subject, I do think that the Buffalo Bills win this one handily against a struggling Miami Dolphins team. So give me the Buffalo Bills, 35-17.
Yeah, I know as a Bills fan, I should probably stop being so worried about playing the Dolphins, but in the back of my mind, I always have that slight feeling of what if they actually
in the back of my mind, all I'm thinking right now is Daddy Josh Allen.
Okay. But when the Bills and Dolphins play every year, there's always that one game that's a blowout, which there was week 2 when we beat them. And then there's always that one game that's always really close. And
this time it's in Buffalo.
It is in Buffalo.
I don't think it's close.
But think about 2 years ago when we played the Dolphins for the division. We won 32-29 off the Tyler
snow game. Field goal. Yeah,
it was a snow game. The Dolphins should not be playing great in snow games, and yet they did. Honestly, if it wasn't snowing, that game might have ended differently, but I don't know. But going back to this current matchup, it's hard not to go against the Bills. They kind of own the Dolphins, it feels like, at this point. I feel like the Dolphins could kind of hang in there a bit because we don't have either of our starting linebackers. And, the Dolphins really get the ball moving on the ground. Of course, they can through the air, but mainly against the Bills, if they move the ball on us, it's normally on the ground game.
And off play action, yeah.
Yeah, working off play action, and since we don't have both our starting linebackers, they could exploit that if they can do it well, because we've been kind of adjusting through the run game
Dorian
lately.
Williams and Valen Spector have looked very solid still.
They have. But it's just a matter of being able to kind of exploit the defense a bit. We'll see if they can this week. I'm not sure if they will. But yeah, give me the Bills to win this one as well, to advance to 7-2 in their season as we make.
What is the Dolphins' record so far?
2-5. They've had their bye week already.
So if they lose, they're 2-6, and Buffalo's 7-2, which means that we'd have a 6-game division lead.
Unless the Jets win or the Patriots win, then it would still be a 5-game or 4-game, be 4-game division lead.
How? Oh, because one of them would be higher than the Dolphins.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, moving into the final 1 p.m. game of the week. This game was the game that should have been flexed to Sunday night. It's the 5-3 Denver Broncos traveling into Baltimore to take on the 5-3 Ravens.
Yo, you think this one should have been flexed?
I mean, more than the Vikings-Colts game, I'd say.
I think it's going to be interesting to see the Vikings and Colts on primetime. The Vikings are starting to fall apart, and then the Colts are looking to get some momentum going with Joe Flacco.
Yeah,
I do think that'll be an interesting matchup. I think that this game is not going to be. I think the Ravens' defense is finally going to learn from their mistakes. They're finally going to put together a complete game performance and put them down in this one early. I think they win this one 24-14. This is a very good Broncos defense. A lot of people could have over 30 points. I don't think that they get close to the 30-point mark. I think 24 is even a little generous for the Ravens with how they played last week. But they managed to score 24 points last week after being shut out, shut down for the first half of the football game with only a couple field goals to their name. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Ravens a big win here. They need this one after losing to that Browns team last week. So for Denver, solid start to the year, but this is just, you're going up against one of the better teams in the NFC, the AFC, sorry.
The NFC.
Okay, bro.
Should have just said NFL at that point.
In the NFL. Right? AFL.
Whoa, ancient. They weren't even around during that time either.
Right, but I didn't think the Baltimore Ravens get it done 24-14.
All right, I agree with you. I'm also going to have the Ravens win this game. This feels like kind of one of those games for Baltimore where their offense, like what you mentioned, doesn't play great, but their defense plays amazing. I feel like this has the potential to be one of those games. Like you said though earlier, the Ravens defense has kind of been shaky in recent weeks. Yes, they have been injured. We'll see if Marlon Humphrey or Nate Wiggins comes back for this game. We'll see. But the Broncos, I mean, hats off to them. They've been playing great this year, 5-3. Nobody has seen that coming this season. And their offense has been playing better than everyone has expected. Bo Nix has been playing better than most people have expected. But again, this is just one of those matchups in Baltimore where it just feels like there's a little too much
going against them.
Yeah, going against them in this one. I think it's going to bite them. But I wouldn't be too worried if you're a Broncos fan. Of course, if you want to make the playoffs, I'd say it's a bit worrisome. But you've had a great start to the season.
I'm not
so
even gonna lie, they're still in a playoff spot right now.
Well, yeah, right now I think they're the 7th.
They're the 6th seed.
The 6th?
Well, yeah, the 5.
No, actually, they're the 5. Actually, the Ravens are the 6th. I checked in the NFL app last night when I was making my score predictions. Broncos are the 5 seed. Ravens are the 6th.
How are the Ravens the 6th?
They must have some tiebreaker over Baltimore, but it's going to change because Baltimore is going to get that tiebreaker.
Both 5-3. They're both 5-3.
They're both 5-3. Yeah.
Oh, they've lost. The Broncos have lost less games within the conference because they lost to the Seahawks. And
that's
the Ravens
true.
have lost all 3 of their games to AFC opponents.
It's because they don't lose to NFC teams.
Yeah, right. They lost to the Chiefs and then week 2 Raiders and then
Browns.
last week the Browns.
Yeah, so Broncos have the tiebreaker for now, but it'll probably switch over to Baltimore with our predictions here. But nonetheless, we're going to move on to the 4:05 o'clock CBS window right now.
5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, right?
Okay. First one being the 2-6 Jacksonville Jaguars going into Philadelphia to take on the 5-2 Eagles, hoping for a Saquon Barkley masterclass in this one. Thomas, who do you got?
Dude, I'm not going to lie to you. This game is going to be ugly for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that this is a game where they're going to lose this one. There's one thing I have to get out of the way here. If the Eagles blow them out, which I have them doing in this game, 31-17, which I think could be worse. The Eagles played great last week against a Bengals team that I had higher expectations for, clearly, by picking them to win.
Yeah, that was absurd.
This week, I do think that the Philadelphia Eagles are the team I will ride with. I think that they're going to be a very good football team for the rest of this season. They're going up against one of the worst secondaries in the league right now in the Jags. I think they tear them apart in this one. The Eagles are going to do a lot of damage with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, maybe even Dallas Goedert. I don't know if he's coming back from injury or not, or if it will be Calcaterra. But I do think that the Philadelphia Eagles dismantle them, and this will be the demise of both Press Taylor, the offensive coordinator, and Doug Peterson as the head coach. I do think for purposes of this season, Doug Peterson's going to stay until the end of the year, only for the simple fact they have nobody to replace him with, and they don't want to go down the Jets route where they just throw together, a couple of pieces of tape and
they just get a stack of Play-Doh and just punch it, and try remeshing it.
Yeah, that's our head coach. Hey, this is our new head coach. You can't mess with him.
Yeah, his name's Aaron.
Yeah, right. So basically, I do think that if you're the Jaguars, you can't get rid of him, but you definitely can get rid of Press Taylor, and they definitely will after this week. I think so. So give me the Jacksonville Jaguars to finally blow it up, as they showed what they've done at the deadline so far. They've moved around a lot of pieces, including Cam Robinson.
Yes.
So I do think that for the Philadelphia Eagles standpoint, this is a team that you can really prey on if you want to get into the Eagle theme. I do think that they get this job done, and they're going to win.
All right, it's funny how you say that you're rolling with the Eagles now, because I've been rolling with them since before the season started. They're my team coming out of the NFC this season. And for now, I'm sticking by that, even though the Lions have been playing great. The Packers have been playing great.
Killing everybody.
I know, but for now, I'm still going to stick with the Eagles unless there's some injury that happens that's season-ending or something, like the Texans, for example.
Breaking news, Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. But yeah, I'm gonna also go with the Eagles in this one. Jaguars are sellers at the deadline, which is kind of crazy to think about considering all the hype that was around the Jaguars coming into this season. And I do agree that their offensive coordinator will probably be fired if they lose this week. Doug Peterson is kind of iffy, like you mentioned. They could definitely still do it. It's kind of like up to the owner if he wants to.
I think the main
do
thing
that.
here is if you look back to the season they made the playoffs and made it to the divisional round after beating the Chargers, like comeback win fashion, right? They
That was their peak moment.
Yeah, they kept it close with the Chiefs, right? And then everyone had so many high expectations for them going into the next season, including you with Trevor Lawrence for whatever reason.
Me?
Yeah, you were like big on Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, yeah, until last season happened. Then I jumped off that train
What
so
ended
fast.
up happening was they signed Press Taylor in the offseason to become the offensive coordinator last year. So he had the entire season last year, and they looked terrible on offense, right? The year they made it to the playoffs...
Well, they started 8-3 last season, don't forget.
Yes, but the oh my gosh. The team that they were beforehand, when they made it to the playoffs, made it to the divisional round and almost won, they had Doug Peterson calling plays offensively.
Maybe they should go back to that.
I think that's what they're going to do here is they're going to fire Press Taylor, go the rest of the season without an offensive coordinator, and give it to Doug Peterson. And if Doug Peterson turns around the offense and keeps this team somewhat competitive for the rest of the season, he keeps his job. However, if the offense is still as bad as they were with Press Taylor, he's gone. And I think this is the perfect way to tell if it's Doug Peterson or if it's Press Taylor. Get rid of Press Taylor and see what Doug Peterson does until the end of the season because Doug Peterson you can't really get rid of.
And then if Peterson is bad, bring back Press Taylor.
No.
I'm kidding. But yeah, we're both going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles in this one. As we move on to the 4-3 Chicago Bears traveling into Arizona to take on the first place in the NFC West. The 4-4 Cardinals. Put some respect on the Arizona Cardinals. Who you got?
The Chicago Bears.
No!
I'm sorry, I have to go with the Bears in this game.
No!
The Cardinals have looked great at home. I get it. But at the same time, this is a Chicago Bears team that's coming off a disappointing loss, to say the least, last week. This is a game they have to... Yeah, right. I think that this is a game they have to win. For the Cardinals, they've won back-to-back games. They're a lot more inconsistent than this, though. They haven't really done too much this season. I think this is the first time they've either lost or won 2 games back-to-back. Actually, maybe they lost 2 games in a row at one point. I'm not sure. But I know this is the first time they've won 2 games in a row this season, which I understand it's still halfway through the year. It's not that unlikely to see it, but still. I do think for the Cardinals' sake, this will be a close game. They play really good at home, so I think that this is going to be a good game. But 24-16, I have the Chicago Bears winning. You're talking about Caleb Williams having a bad game for the second game in a row, and you're going up against who? Max Melton and Garrett Williams? Yeah, no, that's just no. I'm sorry, but I understand that Keenan Allen's not looked the same. Rome Odunze has definitely underperformed so far this season, and then DJ Moore was injured last year, but he's probably going to be back for this game.
Last week.
Yeah, he was injured last week, but I'm saying I
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
But I don't think he misses any time, basically. I do think that the Chicago Bears win this football game. You're going up against a gritty Cardinals team, though, so they'll keep it close. 24-16 Chicago.
Yeah, this game was definitely really tough for me to predict.
You said no, so I'm assuming you also picked...
Well, I'll get to that in a second. I was going to say this game has been really tough for me to predict considering how inconsistent the Cardinals have been this season. And then you look at the Bears and they were just, like you mentioned, they underperformed mightily last week against the Commanders. And I think a lot of people expected more from that offense last week. So, I don't know. It's kind of tough to pick the Bears, but at the same time, like you mentioned, you're playing against that Arizona Cardinals defense. But again, that's kind of what we were saying last week with the Cardinals and Dolphins matchup, was that, the Dolphins are going to feast, which they kind of did, even though it was also Tua's first game back in a month or so. But the Cardinals
went nuts.
He did. But at the same time, the Cardinals still went into Miami and won that football game. So give me the Arizona Cardinals to win this football game. I think this might be another high-scoring game. It's going to be similar to that Miami Cardinals game last week. But I think the Cardinals are going to put together another good offensive performance. Even though they are going against a pretty tough Bears defense, I think the Cardinals might have figured something out here. I think that inconsistency thing might be over, at least for now. And I think they're going to get the win against the Chicago Bears.
Interesting.
As we move along to the 4:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time window on Fox, the first matchup being the 3-4 LA Rams traveling into Seattle to take on the 4-4 Seahawks. Battle And of the very interesting, very tight, very close NFC West.
Jesus.
Who do you got?
I think this will be a very good, very bad, very mixed kind of football
Okay,
game.
you asshole.
I think that the LA Rams are going to get it done, though, on the road. Statistically, over the last few seasons, the 49ers have owned the Rams, and the Rams have owned the Seahawks. And I think that holds true in this game. You're going to have to be the better coach in this one if you're Sean McVay, and I think by a mile he is definitely better than Mike McDonald. I don't think DK Metcalf comes back this week. There's still a slim glimmer of hope that he could. But if he doesn't come back, I think they win by a little bit more than what I have them winning by. For this prediction, I do think that they do start DK Metcalf. I do think he plays in some limited capacity, though. Not like full, like every single play, but like they sub him in and out every few plays.
Yeah.
So I do think that this is one of those games for him that he'll somewhat be in. This is a very important game against a Rams team that's looking to get back to 500 from where they were, which was the depths of the darkness of a basement a few weeks ago. So I do think that the Rams are going to get it done on the road in Seattle. 27-20 would be my score prediction here. Same as what I had the Bills winning by against the Seahawks last week. So I guess these Seahawks fans are probably not happy with my 27-20 scores. But,
no.
I do think that for all purposes of this, I do think that the Seahawks do keep it very close. I think this could be a lot closer of a game if Metcalf plays in full capacity. I have to go with the Rams, though. They've looked very good these last couple weeks, and I think they finally put it together full time. They beat a very good Vikings team, in my opinion. I think they keep the momentum rolling with a win against Seattle.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I know the Rams, they did have a good performance and everything last week, but I feel like
that call.
There was multiple calls where I feel like that definitely went in the Rams' favor. I'm not trying to take away anything from the Rams. I'm just saying those calls would have at least given the Vikings a chance to win. Not saying that they would have won, just saying that the outcome might have been different. But the Rams, again, they still played great last week. Having both Kupp and Nakua back into the fold definitely helped them. They had a great performance last week. And I think they're going to have another great performance here against the Seattle Seahawks. I think the offense will continue to play good football, if not better football, going against this Seahawks secondary. And from what I saw with the Seahawks last week, I think they showed a lot of issues that they have, especially without having DK Metcalf, I think is another big issue. But again, like you mentioned, even if DK Metcalf does come back, is he even going to be playing in full capacity? Probably not.
I mean, it's an MCL sprain because an MCL tear ends his season. You want to be very careful, just like the 49ers have been with the Achilles.
Yeah, so I don't know. There was just a lot of mistakes and stuff that I saw from Seattle that didn't make me too hopeful about them. And I don't know if they're going to be able to fix those issues in just 1 week. And like you also mentioned, the Rams also kind of own Seattle a little bit. So give me the Rams, to win this one also, and potentially take first place in the NFC West, bearing on what else happens around the division, because that's how tight this division is.
The Bears
right
play in
now.
the NFC North.
Did I say the Bears again?
No.
Oh, okay. But yeah, whatever. But moving on.
I'm in his head.
Moving on to the game of the week. The
Vikings Colts.
The 6-1 Detroit Lions traveling into Green Bay to take on the 6-2 Packers. This isn't just for first place in the NFC North. It is for first place in the NFC. Thomas, who do you have winning this huge matchup?
Huge.
Huge matchup here.
I think that the Lions win this football game. 28-21 is my score here. But here's the issue. Jordan Love was limping around for the majority of that Jaguars game.
And they still
before
won.
he came out of the game. And they almost choked because he ended up missing back half of that football game. I don't know if he's going to be at 100% going into this week. And you're going up against a Lions defense that's been pretty good at the pass rush, especially against the Packers O-line that's been suspect at times. So I will go ahead and ride with the hottest hand in the entire league right now in the Detroit Lions. I don't care that the Chiefs are 6-0, 7-0, 7-0, sorry. I don't care that the Chiefs haven't lost a single game yet. The Lions have won their last 2 games by a ton of points. 52-14 and what was it? 42-17 or something the week prior against the Cowboys?
I think this Cowboys one
because they had the bye week or whatever, and then 47-9.
Yeah, I said 9.
So
yeah.
47-9 and 52-14. That's just absolutely insane levels of winning. That's a 76-point plus margin in their favor. They have looked like a completely new team since that loss that they had to the Buccaneers. I think this is one of those games for them that they just continuously dominate for the majority of this one. The Packers will somewhat keep it close, but if Jordan Love doesn't play in a lot of this game, like if he doesn't play the way he can play because of this injury that he's had, I think the Lions could definitely win this by more than one score. They could probably win this by 2 scores. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 35-21 or something like that. And that's a big if, but if Jordan Love isn't at full capacity. So I'm going to ride with the Lions in this one. They've been one of the hottest teams in the league. I understand you're on the road in Lambeau. This game is going to be a lot closer because of that for me.
Yeah.
28-21 Lions as they keep themselves atop the NFC.
Yeah, it's really tough to go against the Lions, I'm going to be honest. Even though the Packers are a great football team, like you mentioned, the Lions...
I hope we see this in the playoffs. I'm sorry, but I really hope we do.
NFC Championship game?
I mean,
actually, that's not happening because the Eagles
are going. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so if anything, it's going to be a divisional game.
Packers-Eagles would be fun to see again, too.
Well, actually, no, because
that's not on a Brazilian field.
Fun fact, I have the Lions in my... before the season started, I had the Lions and Eagles playing in the divisional round. That's just how it lined up.
So you have the Lions losing in the... Oh, God.
That was before the season started, okay? But
let's hope.
Anyways,
let's hope that doesn't happen.
It's hard to go against the team with the hottest hand of the league, that which being the Detroit Lions. And I know you mentioned the Chiefs being 7-0. Like, I wouldn't say the Chiefs have like a hot hand. It's just a steel hand. It's just like hits someone really hard every week. And for the Lions' case, when they punch somebody, they lay it on fire when they're also punching them. The Chiefs just punch them really hard every single time. So it's a bit different. It's a bit different in that aspect. But again,
when the Bills punch somebody, it's like cold because we were in Buffalo, so it's like an ice punch.
Yeah, it's like getting hit with an icicle snowball or something.
Getting hit with a Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, or just an empty trophy case. But regardless, I got the Lions winning this one. Xavier McKinney is going to have an interception in this game. That could be the difference in this game if Xavier McKinney gets an interception.
I don't think McKinney gets one. No. Jared Goff hasn't had an interception in 3 weeks now. 3 games, I should say.
Doesn't mean he's not going to throw one in this one.
Jared Goff has the best completion percentage over the last 3 weeks in NFL history with a 91.7% completion percentage, which is another thing you have to add to this game.
That's insane.
Yeah, 91.7% completion percentage. And I understand he didn't throw that many passes last week against Tennessee. But he had that game against Seattle where he was 18 of 18. Didn't throw a single incompletion against Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, who are pretty solid corners, at least in my opinion. And then he also had that play where he got grabbed in the ankle and turned around 360, threw a pass right off the turn, and it was a perfect throw right to Amon-Ra St. Brown in that game. So I do think that this is one of those games for the Lions. It's just destiny at this point. They played amazing football, and if they win this game by 2 scores, I'm telling you right now, no one's beating the Lions for the rest of the season.
Does that include the Super Bowl, or is that just regular season?
At least the regular season. I wouldn't say Super Bowl because the playoffs are obviously a different breed. But for these Lions, if they come out here and they stomp the Packers, this is the biggest statement I've ever seen.
Wow.
Over the last 3 weeks?
Over the last 3 weeks, yeah.
Dude.
I mean, yeah.
I understand it's the Titans, but 52 points to 14. They looked great on special teams, offense, and defense in that last game. They looked great on offense and defense in the game prior. If they come out and play like that again, 3 weeks in a row, and this time against an amazing Packers team,
yeah,
whew, look out.
Yeah, but we're going to be looking out for Sunday Night Football as well.
NBC.
It is the
stupidest transition I've ever heard in my life.
It's the 4-4 Indianapolis Colts traveling into Minnesota to take on in the past 2 weeks, the 0-2 Minnesota Vikings. Thomas, do the Vikings lose 3 straight football games, not being at the hands of Joe Flacco?
No, they don't. I think you can't spell Colts without an L. So
okay.
I think the Colts are done.
You think they're done? They're 4-4.
They have Joe Flacco starting.
He's played better than Anthony Richardson. His touchdown to interception ratio is 7-1. He's played 2 games.
They played the Jaguars and then who else?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. He played the Jaguars defense.
Played the Jaguars and the Jaguars.
Garbage. But I do think for the sole thing of this, I think that the Minnesota Vikings aren't going to lose 3 in a row. You're going up against one of the worst secondaries again in the Indianapolis Colts. Julius Brents, their second-year cornerback, was injured in preseason, out for the season, obviously, with his tear of the ACL. And then on top of that, Kenny Moore has not looked himself. Also, he's a slot guy, so he'd go up against Addison in this game, meaning that Justin Jefferson's probably going to be facing Julian Blackmon and then whoever they're going to throw at him at cornerback, which is just not going to work. I mean, last week, the Rams showed that you can't really guard Jefferson. Even when he was closely guarded for most of that game, he was finding ways to get open just a slight bit for Darnold to make the throws.
Yeah.
I think this is another game where he has a lot more to work with in this one, a lot more space in between him and the other guys. I think Jefferson goes off in this game. I think for the Minnesota Vikings, this is a game where they're going to view this as do or die because you don't want to lose 3 straight games, especially in the division they're in.
Oh, yeah.
You can't afford to lose 3 in a row. I understand you beat the Packers already, and they're playing the Lions this week, so there's a chance they lose also. But this is still, you want to maintain not just second in the division, because that's just one higher spot in the wild card. You want to win the division because that could potentially be for the conference, like we mentioned with that last game. So go ahead and give me the Minnesota Vikings to dominate this one, 24-14. I also don't think that Joe Flacco has played a game where he's faced a lot of pressure. This is that game that he's finally going to. And we saw what happened to him in the wild card round when he played the Houston Texans and faced a lot of pressure through 3 interceptions, including a pick 6. So I do think that this is one of those games for the Colts where they're going to drop. I wonder if they're going to go back to Richardson after this week, maybe just because of that that tired thing. I think that's like a big...
Yeah, he was just catching his breath this whole week.
Yeah. No, I'm saying the tired thing is, it could be like a punishment, basically, putting him on the bench.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, maybe.
I'm not sure what they'll end up doing with that, but that's besides the point. I have the Vikings winning 24-14, convincing fashion for the Minnesota Vikings at home, too, which they played exceptional at home. So go ahead and give me Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm also going to have to go with the Vikings here. You're at home on primetime facing a team that just benched their starting quarterback. And then also, on top of that, you're in a division that's, again, the toughest in football. And you got the Packers and the Lions playing each other this week. So that opens up the number 2 spot in the division right there. So it's right there for the taking if you're the Minnesota Vikings. And it'll be even better if the Lions lose. Because if the Lions lose, that's a 3-way tie for first place in the division? Well, no, it'd be tied for second place. Then the Packers would be at first place. But I think so.
No, it would be Vikings.
Vikings would be first place?
The Vikings beat the Packers and the Packers beat the Lions, then yes.
Well, if the Packers win, the Packers would be 7-2, and if the Vikings win, the Vikings would be 6-2, because the Vikings have had their bye already.
Oh, so yeah, the Packers would be at 1 because of that bullshit loop, but yeah.
Yeah, but regardless, it'll make the NFC North a whole lot interesting at the top. And I also feel like another aspect of this game here, too, is if the Vikings lose to the Colts in this game, I feel like a lot of people are going to start jumping off that Vikings train very quickly, considering I just jumped on this Vikings train and they've gone 0-2. But I'm still going to believe in the Vikings to win this game. I think Aaron Jones is going to have a good game. Of course, Justin Jefferson's going to go off. I hope
you
Jordan...
need to jump off then. You're the one that's ruining the ship.
Yeah, I'm just weighing it down. I really hope Jordan Addison has a good game because I also picked him up in fantasy too, by the way. I don't know if you saw that yet.
I have Justin Jefferson, though. So.
Yeah, okay, you can screw off. Yeah.
He got nuts in this one.
Yeah, moving on to the last final game of the week, Monday Night Football.
The last final finale.
Final finale finisher. It is the
closing game.
It is the 4-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling into Kansas City because the Chiefs are always at home for big games. It is the 7-0 Chiefs. Thomas, do the Chiefs continue their undefeated streak and go to 8-0?
Yes. This is a Bucs team that's bruised and battered, and you can argue in that last game that they shouldn't have even scored as many points as they did. They got a little bit lucky at the end. They also had a chance to win against Atlanta, who's not looked the same. You're going against a buzzsaw in the Kansas City Chiefs who find ways to win no matter...
steel fist.
No matter how bad the Chiefs' offense or defense looks in a game, the other one will step up and win them the game for them. So I think that this is one of those games where the Buccaneers aren't going to be able to do much offensively. The Chiefs continue their amazing run. 31-13, they win this football game. And I don't think that this one's going to be close at all. I'm unfortunately having to go with the Kansas City Chiefs here. But bias aside, they have been one of the best football teams in the league. I would put them second right now because of how well the Lions have played. Just because, like, Detroit, I understand they lost one game, but they lost by 4 points to this same Bucs team when they were fully healthy, who had Baker Mayfield playing like an MVP at the time. And they only lost by 4 points because Jared Goff threw 3 interceptions in that game. The fact that they only lost by 4 to a team in that circumstance where you threw 3 interceptions is pretty damn good in its own right. So I do think that the Lions are still a very good team, as are the Kansas City Chiefs, though. I do think the Chiefs win this football game 31-13. Like you said, they're at home. They obviously have the better coach. They have the better quarterback. They have the better everything. So go ahead and give me Kansas City. Even better receivers!
Well, yeah, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have no receivers right now. And that would have been
news. Chris Godwin traded to the Kansas City Chiefs, and then he'd play in the Super Bowl, and then he'd have like 300 yards receiving. Break the record with 5 touchdowns.
Okay, dude. Okay.
My life's over.
All right. Anyways, I was really hoping, like, if the Buccaneers are fully healthy going into this game, this would have been a great Monday night matchup. Even though the Chiefs probably would have still won, would have been a great Monday night matchup to watch. But yeah, I'm also going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs right now. They've just shown no reason not to pick against them. I mean, if anything, maybe Mahomes interceptions, but at the same time, Tampa Bay is probably not going to get a whole lot done on offense, considering the weapons they're missing and how great the Chiefs have been playing on defense. They've been arguably the best defense this season.
They are right now.
Even after losing L'Jarius Sneed in free agency, they're
overall
still really
defense,
good.
not turnovers, just overall defense itself. Like, you know,
They've been amazing.
Stopping the other team, they've been insane.
Yeah, but regardless, we're both going with the Chiefs in this one. And we disagree on 3 games this week. That
Once
being
again,
the Texans, Jets, Chargers, Browns, and Bears, Cardinals. So someone will have this Lombardi trophy next week. Will it be
and
me again?
believe it or not, if you lose all 3 of these games,
We will
just
be tied.
hypothetically, we would be tied.
We'd be
in
tied
the
all
season
time.
standings.
So make sure to tune in for our next podcast to see who gets the Lombardi trophy. Will it be me again, or will it finally be Thomas again for the first time in a couple weeks? Stay tuned to find out.
Thank you, Jaden Daniel.
Yeah, of course. If you wanted to follow us over on Spotify, greatly appreciate it. We're also on YouTube on Leo Meister if you want to subscribe to us over there as well. But with that, I don't got much else to say except Lay Forms out.